welcome to my channel. I am Summer. I'm back this week with a fun haircut tutorial, and this time I will be showing you how I achieve a in-salon textured bob along with what things to ask for in your consultation for those who are behind the chair as well as those in the chair. I will also be going over some styling tips as well to maximize the movement and texture of this cut, so let's get started. Okay, so I've got her sprayed down so her hair is damp, ready to cut. I am going to be cutting her on a side part, as I feel most people who wear bobs tend to wear their hair to one side. If you wear it down the middle, that's completely fine. You would just have it cut directly down the middle. We're gonna be bringing up the length a decent amount, getting rid of these dead ends, and I am just going to be lightly rounding it out in the back. I'm not creating this super severe stack at all. I feel like right now with the trends, that's sort of out for the bob looks, especially this textured look that I'm creating, but I will link below a stacked bob tutorial that you guys can check out should you want to see one. And then I'm not gonna be doing really too much of an angle, maybe a tiny bit, we'll see. But this cut is gonna be nice for people who maybe don't like a ton of layers, or you have finer, thinner hair. We're gonna create some movement, but you're still gonna keep a lot of weight and thickness throughout the hair, and I'm gonna be doing more so freehand layers, like I like to call them for myself. So we're gonna get started off with sectioning first. Sectioning is very key. We're just gonna go ear forward, get that out of the way. Do the same on the other side. And then for our back, I'm big on multiple sections. So what I like to do is sort of almost come in the middle of the cut to split it in half, just so you're keeping the sections kind of nice and clean. It's easier to move through the hair. And I'm gonna take my first parting on each side. I'm actually gonna bring this up just a little bit more so I can easily see everything. All right, so like I said, we are keeping this more of a longer-ish bob where the client can still be able to pull their hair back in a little bit baby of a ponytail. So what I'm gonna do is, like I said, we're bringing up a good amount of length here. I'm gonna start in the middle, and I have her head angled down a little bit. And we are going to cut. So that is our guide. If you wanna pull down a little baby ponytail, you've got enough hair here to sort of work with. So if you are a client wanting to get this done in salon, I always recommend bringing in a picture to show your stylist. And if you're a stylist in salon with a client wanting to get this haircut, if they don't bring in a picture, get on your phone, your tablet, and start scrolling through the internet so that way you guys can get on the same page. If there is a picture that you like or your client likes, it's best if you ask them what it is specifically that they like about the photo. Is it this one layer? Is it the back? Is it the sides? That way you're on the same page and you can really pinpoint what it is that you like most about the haircut you're showing, and maybe you like it all, so that's even better. But definitely keep that conversation going as far as what it is specifically about a haircut you like when you bring in the picture. So again, this is not a heavy stack, but I'm just gonna lightly, very lightly angle, lift. It's not so much of an angle, just pull out, so not all the way straight down with it, just to create a very soft shape. After I get it dry, I'll show you guys how I like to go in and refine a little bit more in the back, especially because this is going to not have a ton of layers in it. Like I said, I'm doing more so freehand layers to create a little bit more of that movement and shape. So you'll see what I mean when we get there. But again, I'm not creating that heavy stack. So where if I was, I would be bringing it out more and higher up, more at like a 45-90, somewhere in between, and cutting into it to start creating that shape of an angle. All right, we're gonna move into our next section. And again, I like to keep clean sections, nothing too crazy. You wanna be able to always see the hair underneath that you're cutting. And if you want to keep it softer, You can go ahead and opt to point cut into it more rather than a blunt cut like I was starting out with, just to keep the line soft. You can go back in and certainly soften it up after the fact. So that's all personal preference on your skill level when cutting. If you like your ends to be blunt and you're a client getting this done, just simply tell your stylist that, and if you like it point cutted, definitely let them know. I'm just gonna keep moving up the head. After this section, because we're getting above her occipital here, I'm gonna bring the head back to normal position. I usually will have clients look down just to when I get to the roundness there in the back of their head, and then they can look forward. And then I like to pull my sides as I'm moving through. I'm sort of standing off to the side here, so I just want to make sure everything's lining up, and for the most part it is. So now we're just gonna move her to looking straight ahead or normal and move on into our next section. One thing that's nice about a textured bob is that they are low maintenance. This is long enough to pull back into a low pony and get it away from the face, and they're easy to style. So it's ideal for clients who maybe don't always want to do their hair. It's all personal preference, how much work you put into your hair, whether you style it every day or once a week. A textured bob is easy to maintain and get away with on days you don't feel like putting the effort in. Still pulling out a little bit here, not too much, but enough to just create a little bit of shape. And I'm continuing to point cut into this. As a stylist, I always like to ask the client what their styling routine is. You can find out a lot by asking that question, and oftentimes it's an important opportunity to give your client some tips that might make it easier for them to style their hair on their own at home day to day. So just make sure you're bringing that up in your consultation and give them tips throughout the blow dry process. All right, so this last section here is going to be the last section I do in the back with lightly taking it out. I know we're not doing it a ton, but just to make note. The rest, I'm just gonna bring it straight down. So another nice thing about this haircut is overall it's a fairly low maintenance hairstyle. So that's great if you're somebody who likes something really nice and easy. That's something that definitely should always be brought up in a consultation, whether you are the client sitting in the chair or you're the hairstylist doing it. You want to make sure the cut that they're asking for is something that they can handle on their own with styling. And this is where this is a really nice option for that. Even if you don't want to take the time to do a ton, I'm going to show you guys how you can add in some nice, easy waves to spice it up and really make the texture pop that we're going to be creating. So like I said, now from this point on of this back section, I'm bringing everything down. I'm not lifting it out at all really. And then we're just going to add in very minimal long layers first, and then we're gonna move into the sides, and after I get everything cut is when I'm gonna go in and add in what I like to call my freehand layers. And before moving into the sides, I'm just gonna take my two corners here, pull them directly to the middle, line them up, make sure that they're even so that way when we go into our sides, it flows towards the front nicely. Okay. All right, so moving into the sides, I'm just gonna come in and I'm gonna take small sections like I was doing before, clipping the rest of the hair out of the way. If your client or you have super thin, fine hair, you can probably do this all in one step, but I still like to section it off just to be on the safe side. And then I'm not really gonna angle it so much. It's gonna be sort of more even everywhere, just very, very lightly cutting into this to remove that length. And again, this is long enough that the client will easily be able to get their hair pulled back. You might have some pieces falling out, but if you like it away from your face and that option for working out or exercising, whatever you're doing, you very well can do that. I'm just gonna finish off this front and then I'll repeat on the other side to get my sides evened up. I accidentally moved backwards a little bit. I think I said I was going to layer the back first and then come into the sides, but I moved directly into the sides, which is fine. So I'm just gonna do her perimeter on this side and then we will start our layers everywhere. And then remember, I am doing more of a point cutting into it to keep the line soft rather than a blunt cut. Okay, so we've got all of the perimeter cut. You would want to stand in front of your client, make sure you're pulling, or if you're doing this at home on your own, bring everything kind of towards to your face or use a portion of your body to set a guide to make sure it's lining up. So we're gonna go back to separating the front from the back because I did this backwards. And I'm just gonna clip the sides out of the way and then I will add my layers in the back. So I believe I already mentioned this before, but we're gonna be doing more of a longer layer to just kind of break up some of this hair, and then I'm gonna go in and do what I call my freehand layers. The reason, ideally the freehand layers in this cut, I feel like works really great for people with finer, thinner hair. Super thick, coarse hair, you can obviously do this cut on as well. You might want it cut into a little bit more, but if you don't like a lot of layers in your hair, then this way that I'm doing it is actually really ideal for that. But the reason why it works so well on finer, thinner hair is that you're able to create some shape and movement, but you don't jeopardize taking out too much weight and thickness everywhere. As a client, a tip would be to really know your hair, know where your finer, thinner spots are, know where you want cut, where you don't want cut. I have to be very careful with my front pieces underneath. I'm a little bit what I call bald underneath. So if I ever see somebody new or there's a new girl at work cutting my hair, I always really make sure to explain that to her, that I don't really like any layers around my face. Everything from basically the front of my ear forward, I don't like cut into, but everything else is fine. It's game. So that is something you need to be aware of. Make your client aware of it. If you're stylisting somebody for the first time, really kind of inspect their hair, ask questions. A lot of times I feel like if you as a client, if you're not super direct, your stylist, sometimes it's not that they aren't doing their job, they just don't always know how to verbalize something in the correct way, and we certainly never want to offend anybody. So really know your hair is basically key here. So to do these layers, I've taken a middle part and I'm just gonna come straight up at an angle and I'm just gonna cut into that. So all this hair here is falling out. And I'm gonna do a point cutting just to keep it nice and soft. I do have a full tutorial on doing these layers that I'm doing, a long layered method on a longer mannequin that I'll link below if you wanna visually see what that looks like on longer hair. But I do it the same way as far as just bringing it straight up, let that bottom fall out and cut into it. And we're just gonna follow around the whole head. Come up, twist. You can see my guide, cut. All the way up, twisting as I go, and cut. Coming over to this last side, coming straight out. I use the fine side of my comb. I say this like in every tutorial that I always use the fine side of my comb. I'll alternate, but really the fine side is what I use to finish it out, and then cut that. And then I'm gonna come in, go back to that middle parting, and I'm just gonna bring it not all the way out, but a little bit more at a lower angle, still twisting, and just cut into that a little bit more. So I wanna take out a touch more before going in with my freehand layers. But yeah, this leaves all the bulk and thickness down here, which is great if you have fine or thin hair. If you have super thick hair, you probably want a little bit more cut into. And then I'm gonna come directly across the top layer of the back. I'm gonna come straight up and just point cut into that middle. Alrighty, so now to move into the sides, we're gonna be doing it similar where I'm pulling everything more up and at an angle, but I am going to be pulling it a little bit back towards me, away from the face, just so I'm keeping, I don't like to overdo it around the face, especially when it's wet. You can always go back in and cut more once it's dry. So I like to pull straight back a little bit, up, that hair's falling out, and cut. And I am gonna be doing a tiny bit of a face framing around her face, but not a lot. With a bob lob, I don't personally love a lot of face framing. I feel like it kind of loses its look, but I certainly have had clients that want that. So if that's what you want, just make note of it. But for this cut, I'm not gonna be doing a ton. And then we're just gonna finish out on the other side, and then I will show you how I style my freehand layers. All right, so on this last side, we're gonna be doing the same thing, taking my section, we're going away from her face, up, twist, all that hair is out, and cut. Next section. Cut. Away, twist, just a little bit, cut, and our very last piece. Just barely, some nubs. This mannequin actually has a little bit more texture to her hair than I would have thought. So I'm gonna actually spray her down a little bit just because I want the hair nice and damp for cutting. That way I keep the most control through the hair for my freehand layers. So to do so for my sectioning for this, I'm not making it quite as precise or crazy neat. I just wanna start getting the top off from the bottom. So I've just got two sections here, nothing fancy for this part because I'm not really going, I'm going all over the head, but I'm not getting super precise. I guess that would be the word I'm looking for. So what I will do is sort of just basically at random, I'm gonna take some hair and just, usually I'll do it like in 3 sections. So I'll do a little in the middle and a little on the side. So I start in the middle And I'm just gonna come out and I will take my scissors and I'm just gonna sliver into the hair. So what this does is it's creating some shorter pieces and layers, so to speak, but you're not encompassing the whole head. So you're gonna get movement, which is gonna be great for when you go to curl the hair or you wanna see some texture and pieciness when styling if you're wearing it straight and using like a texture paste. This allows for some shape, but you're not removing too much bulk, which is gonna be key for finer, thinner hair types or people who like their hair a little bit more one length or very long layers. So again, I just take a random piece of hair. I'm using the fine side of my comb. I'm just gonna take my shears, come in at an angle with them, and just go down the hair. Almost as if like you're face framing with the slivering and sliding, but you're just cutting into some random pieces throughout the back of the hair. And we're gonna do this all through her hair, working our way all the way to the top. And again, you want the hair to be pretty damp to do this. I just feel like it creates a little bit more control and fluff around with it. All right, so we're into our next section and I'm just gonna do the same thing, grabbing random pieces of hair, sliding into them, like I'm creating a little bit of a face frame, so to speak. If somebody had really coarse, thick hair, your texturizing shears might be ideal for this, and you can go in it the same exact way I'm doing this with sliding. You'll just take out a little bit more hair. So maybe somebody who's super, super thick, that might be better to do on them than what I'm doing right now. So all that hair just got removed for a little bit of movement in the hair. And for the sides, same thing, but I'll be a little bit more careful, maybe with my hand, especially if the sides are a little thinner. I wait to do more of this if I feel I need to do it once the hair is dry. Sometimes even just slightly come in at random and go at it. You want to not really be taking a ton off when I'm doing it at this specific way. I'm barely closing my shear on it. And then we will go to the top, which on her side over here, because it's a little heavier of a part, I'm gonna break this in half. So I literally will just grab the hair at random and kind of go in the middle and bottom parts of the section. And then on the very, very top layer, I tend to just do it lightly down at the bottom more. I don't want to do it too much on the top. And then, like I said, when I go in after I dry it and check it out, I can always add in more. I'm gonna just take off a little bit from that top layer. This is actually probably one of my most relaxing cuts I like to do. I kind of feel like I sometimes will zone out and you get to kind of feel through the hair more and strategically place some of your layers, if that makes sense. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna dry her and then I'll show you how I like to just lightly maybe round this out a little bit more in the back. So because we want some texture and shape with this, I am going to use more of a gel mousse. This is gonna have some good holds in it and allow you to play off of if you have a natural wave a little bit more. And then I'm gonna create some waves with a curling iron and I'll show you guys how I do that to add in some fun pieces that are easy maintenance to kind of spice it up. And then this mousse is from L'Oreal Techni Arc. I will link it below, of course, to where you can check it out if you are looking for a new volumizing mousse. And like I said, this is like a gel and mousse in one, so it does have a little bit more of that hold. Right, so I'm just gonna get her dry now. I'm gonna be working my blow dryer in a circular motion while rough drying. What that's gonna do is create a little bit more volume and height everywhere. This is a great tip for if you are styling at home, just working it literally circular motions as you're doing it. And then this is the Tymo Air Hype. This is their brand new dryer. All right, so she is mostly dry now. And I typically, if I'm adding some waves to the hair, a lot of times, especially if we want a lot of texture and body, I would not opt to use a round brush, but because I'm gonna be refining the cut some, I am gonna go through it to get the rest of it dry with just a big fat brush to smooth it out a little bit more, so I can show you guys how I like to go in and refine some pieces that need it. Okay, so we've got her dried and styled so you guys can see what it looks like smooth. Like I said, if I were doing this like at home on myself or on a client, I would have just stuck with the rough dry, especially adding in the waves. But because I'm gonna do some dry cutting, and so you can see it both straight and curled, I wanted to smooth it out a little bit more. So we have just a little bit of roundness going up into here with our bob. It is long, but we do have some nice movement. That texture is popping through, which I love. But on this other side, you can see we've got a little bit. I need to refine a little in here some, and I am gonna just lightly cut into this back to soften it up, and I might add a touch more texturizing through here. But let me just go through and do a little bit more dry cutting. Like I said, over here, I feel like she needs a little bit of work. I'm not loving how that's looking. Okay, so to do that, what I do is I separate the front from the back, just like we've been doing. And again, because it's already dried and styled, I sort of just take one big section here and clip it out of the way, and I'll do the same on the other side. The client tilt their head back down, and a lot of times what happens, this didn't happen too much with her, but with bobs sometimes the hair will poke out underneath. If you watch my other bob tutorial and the bob with bangs, there were some hairs really poking out on that. So if you struggle with that with your bobs cutting in salon, definitely check out that video, so maybe you don't feel alone. So I'm just gonna come in with my scissors, make sure it's lining up, barely off here. And I'm just gonna go scissor over comb and point cut into this just to soften it up and create a little bit more texture without being too much. And I'm gonna do that all through this whole back section. And then just, I start in the middle, scissor over comb, point cut into that. And this just keeps it a little softer everywhere and helps create just a little bit more roundness throughout this back section here. You'll see a little bit more of a curve. More of that slicing I like to do. And then I'm just gonna comb everything down. I'm gonna bring her back to looking normal. I'm just gonna come in, and at where sort of the curve begins, I'm gonna come down at an angle like that and just point cut into this. And I'm gonna go back up at like I'm doing those long layers. I'm not trying to necessarily remove more length with the layers, just cut into it to remove any extra bulk and to create that extra bit of texture that we're trying to see here or achieve here with this. So when you go to style it, put in your texturizing products, paste, curls, whatever, you get a little bit more movement and mess to it. Coming down deep into that. I'm not saying just on the ends, I'm going in and out. So in, out, in, out. I actually could like point cut and texturize cut all day long. These are why these cuts are my favorite. It's just, I don't know, there's something nice and fun and relaxing to me about going in and adding sort of just these freehand fun layers, cutting into the hair, but you're keeping the bulk and the weight in the cut. And we're gonna drop our side. Up good. Sometimes I get down low with my bobs to see the underneath. I will like squat down on my knees just because sometimes you can't bring the chair all the way up. You've got a little bit of a piece right in here. I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but this is driving me crazy, so I gotta come in here and find that. It's more on the underneath side of that. There it is. Again, I'm just coming in with a little bit of slivering through the sides. She needs a little bit more softening here. I'm gonna come out and point cut into this corner, and I'm doing it more on this bottom area here, not so much on the top. So I'm coming in and I'm twisting, and this is the underside, and I'm just gonna point cut into that to soften it. It's a little thick right there. It's greatly helping. I'm just continuing my point cutting all throughout these sides. Again, this is the part that the hair is going to with the side. So usually whatever side you wear your hair to or your client wears their hair to, you usually have to go in and cut into it a little bit more just because there's more weight coming over here. Then you would just want to stand directly in front of the client and make sure it's matching up. Okay, so I've got all her dry cutting done, and I wanted to show you guys a nice good shot of it straight everywhere, tons of body, tons of movement. At this point, I would personally not do any face framing, but for those who like face framing, I wanted to do it to show you. But that way you can see it both without any face framing and then some pieces with the face framing. And then I'm gonna of course curl it for you, but we have just a little bit of a shape here, little roundness. Nice movement all throughout the back, and like I said, tons of texture and body everywhere. Oh, I love it. So if you were wanting to come in and do a face framing, I would recommend doing just something minimal if you're wanting to keep the nice thick bob look. But some people like a little bit of a swoop around the face. So really to do it, I sort of just do it like a freehand layer. I'm not trying to create a ton, just so you have like a little bit of a swoop here, especially for when you're going to add in a little bit of curl. It just kind of makes the texture pop in that sense. So if you're curling this with a face frame, I think it looks nice. It's only really when it's straight that I feel like it kind of loses that bob look. So I'm just gonna come in and I'm literally gonna just angle at no really rhyme or reason and just slide my scissors down to create a little bit of shape and take away some of that weight. Actually stand on the other side, come in and cut. It's pretty simple, the face framing. And again, I'm not trying to do a ton, but just a little bit. So you see a little bit more movement in here, and you can even bring the hair forward and point cut up into that to create a little bit more of an angle. If you're worried about doing too much, I would just do it on the outer layer so you still keep this weight underneath. But like I said, when it's curled, you'll get to see a little bit more of the swoop. I could do more, but it really kills me, honestly, with a bob type haircut to do too much face framing. And we're just gonna line it up on the other side here. Come in and angle down. And actually, if you are somebody who's like planning to always wear this curled, it doesn't even have to be like super precise as far as your face framing pieces in the front. If you like it cut into a little bit more on, let's say, your parted side, but you want to leave this side longer, you certainly can do that. It's really kind of all at your own discretion. And again, we're just going to angle point cut up into that. But yeah, that's nice. That just cuts into a little bit where you get some swoop and some pieces that fall around the face. But again, you retain this thickness here. Okay, now comes the final and fun part. I'm gonna add in a little bit of a texture wave. I'm going to be using Tymo's Aqua Curling Iron. This is about 1 1/4 inch, so it's gonna give enough of a bend, but not too much of a defined curl. I'm not trying to create a curl. I wanna create just a really nice loose wave. I'm gonna do it on literally the lowest heat setting, actually. I'll go to number 2. So the key, if you're trying to create just a little bit of a bend, is keep the heat low on your iron. It's gonna allow for some shape to be created, but not so like indented and intense, I guess would be the correct word, is what I'm looking for. I try to separate the hair into about 3 sections. You can do even 2 big sections if you like. All depends on how tight or loose you want your waves. Okay, so I've got her curls in everywhere, just some nice light pieces. And so now that it's cooled down, what I'm gonna do is I'm literally just gonna run my hands through the hair, mess it up. I love this so much. If you know me, you know I love the AG Dry Texture Paste, thumbnail size, and I'm just gonna work that all through the hair. This part is optional, but it just kind of kicks it up a little bit more. Ugh. See, this is when I like a little bit of the face framing pieces. When it's waved, you get to see it a little bit better. And again, it's just a little bit of bend through the hair, nothing crazy. It looks so good. I love it. All right, there we have a fun textured bob. This is great to give some movement to the hair as well as making your hair style a little more fun and trendy. Remember, whether you are a stylist behind the chair or a client in salon, to really talk in the consultation about what it is you are exactly wanting. Stylists ask for pictures. Clients make sure you are pointing out exactly what it is you like and don't like about the photo. Wear your style or your hair every day or just on a whim. This is a great cut with very easy styling to really make it fun. Add in those light waves. Texture paste really brings out everything together for a fun look. I so hope you guys enjoyed today's tutorial. I sure had fun doing the cut. All tools, products, and everything will be linked below in the description. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time.